As a practicing witch since 1980, what are some of the top questions do you think I get asked most often? What is the difference between a book of shadows and a grimoire? Hi, I'm Neferkefri of Magical Musings. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm talking about the differences between a grimoire and a book of shadows. First of all, the term Book of Shadows was an invention by Gerald Gardner, who is basically the man responsible for inventing the modern version of Wicca that we know today. I am a third generation witch. My great grandmother on my father's side was a very well-known curandera in Michoacan, Mexico. And I inherited my abilities from her. Now, the Book of Shadows is a term that was invented by Gerald Gardner to refer to a witch's recipe book. The Book of Shadows is like your personal diary of witchcraft. It includes the spells that you've tried and your personal notes on how those spells turned out. Did they work? Were they a total failure? A rip-roaring success? What happened? What ingredients did you use in performing the spell? What color of candles did you use? Any oils? Did you use herbs? If you did use oils and herbs, did you just sprinkle them around the candle? Did you anoint the candle itself? All that goes into a practitioner's Book of Shadows. And the Book of Shadows is meant to be added to over time. You also might want to, remove pages from when you were first starting if you find them personally embarrassing or something. Personally, I don't. I've left everything in mine because, it's a good way to map out your own development as a witch. And then you can see over the years how your perception of energy and of witchcraft, how it changes as you evolve as a person. And then you also include your own thoughts on why do you think this works so well? Why do you think this one didn't work so well? And you can also include, some people will put in correspondences in their Book of Shadows. For me, that's different. So my Book of Shadows is my witchy diary. It's my own personal take on my practice and why I think something worked, why it didn't work. And it's a good record of all my ingredients. And that way I can repeat a positive energy transmission or spell. I can repeat it exactly down to the lunar cycle, day of week, time of day, type of candles used, number of candles used, colors of the candles, herbs and oils I used, how I used the herbs and oils in the spell. Sometimes I do different things, all that is in there. So I can easily repeat my most successful positive energy transmissions or spells. And that's how I also run my business. Every service I offer, I have done repeatedly for myself. Everything. So all the different positive energy transmissions that I perform, which is basically for any purpose, I've done for myself. I have annotated in my Book of Shadows. I can repeat them exactly for a client. So if they worked for me, hopefully they work as well for the client. The grimoire, on the other hand, is very different. It's usually kept in a separate book. Some witches, what they like to do, what they prefer to do is they'll have half Book of Shadows, half grimoire. But you don't mix the two. Like you don't have a couple of pages of a spell you did, a couple weeks ago and what you felt about it, and then the next couple pages is a grimoire entry. No, they're kept separate. Typically, I have always kept mine in separate books. It's just for ease of organization. And when I go back to refer to something, I'm not thinking, oh, gee, where did I put that? Is it in my Book of Shadows or is it in my grimoire? Now, the grimoire, that's your official record. Everything that goes into your grimoire, it's never changed. That is your permanent record. It's like, in school, that's going to go on your permanent record. Well, that's a grimoire. That's your witchy permanent record. The things you put in your grimoire are things about your practice and your view of the world that you feel will never change. So like what's in mine, for instance, I have what all of the 5 elements are, because that's universal. The elements are never going to change. So I have the names of the elements, I have their correspondences, and then I have how I personally will cast my protection circle. And this is different for everyone. Some people will call the quarters, will call the elements in. Some will call in the 4 archangels. Some will call in what's called the watchtowers. You know, it varies. It varies. How you would create your own circle of protection at the start of every spell that you perform, or in my case, positive energy transmission, that method goes into my grimoire. So I have it step by step, and it never changes. I do it the same all the time. Other things that are in my grimoire. I use stones and crystals when I perform my positive energy transmissions. So I'm not just working with candles, herbs, and oils. I'm combining Reiki, the clear iridescent energy ray of Archangel Michael per Ankh, and the energies of stones and crystals. So in my grimoire, I have a list of all the stones and crystals that I use and their associations. So that's another part of the grimoire that would never change, because those associations, those stones and crystals aren't going to change over time, you know. So their associations will always remain the same. Another thing that can go into your grimoire is a section on essential oils. Which essential oils do you prefer to use in your practice? Keeping in mind that many, many people have allergic sensitivities to plants and to flowers. And this is what goes into the mixture of an essential oil, a good one, anyhow, that isn't just a scent, you know, it comes from the essence of a plant, of an herb, of a flower, and so, or of a tree. You have to know what you're allergic to, basically. And then there are some essential oils that are very caustic to the skin, like cinnamon. Cinnamon can burn the skin. You don't ever want to get cinnamon essential oil on you. That's a prime example. Sometimes peppermint can burn, you know, if you get a lot on you, or if you get it near, you know, a mucous membrane. For instance, don't ever be anointing a candle and then, you know, absently rub an eye. Oh man, you do not want to do that. So, you know, it's things like that. You have to know what you're allergic to, what you're sensitive to. A lot of people, you know, smell is one of our strongest senses, and a lot of people are sensitive to certain smells. So if there's a smell of an essential oil that you don't like, don't use it. There are always substitutions, okay? And I will have a really good reference linked below by Scott Cunningham for herbal and oil and incense substitutions. He has 2 books on the subject. I highly recommend them. So, like I said, for essential oils in your grimoire, you list your favorites. What do you use the most for money magic? What do you use for love and romance? What do you use for health, banishing, and so on? And you list your favorites. And you can also list your suppliers. Where do you order them from? Where do you buy them from? Do you buy them locally? Are you equipped to make them yourself? Many witches do that. So again, all that goes into your grimoire, because that information is not going to change. The same thing goes for any herbs that you use in your magical practice. Again, the same applies to herbs that applies to essential oils. Do not use herbs that you know you're allergic or sensitive to. Don't want to do that. The last thing you want to do is perform this wonderful spell and you end up with a really severe allergic reaction. For instance, for me, I'm badly allergic to thyme, and I never knew that. And so I tried growing it, and I found out the hard way when I broke out in hives all over my hands, up my arms. It was horrible. Hives are so painful. And then I realized, well, can't work with thyme anymore. So that's one herb I avoid. But again, there are substitutions that you can use. So again, being a witch, you're required to have a good book of correspondences. And again, I have a couple of sources listed below. So for herbs, all of your steadfast information that you would regularly refer to goes into your grimoire. Now, another difference between the grimoire and the Book of Shadows is this. Your Book of Shadows is basically, it's your personal witch's diary. That remains usually personal, and you don't really allow anyone to see that. Your grimoire, on the other hand, can be a group book. It can be a book devoted to a coven if you're a member of a coven. You may want to designate someone to receive that book after you're gone, your grimoire. That's another difference between a Book of Shadows and a grimoire. Since a Book of Shadows is so personal, usually you're not going to be leaving that to your children, or to your partner. It's usually something that's really personal and special, and you may actually leave instructions as to what you want done with your Book of Shadows when you're no longer here. That's something to consider. Grimoire, on the other hand, often grimoires are passed down in families. So in your grimoire, you could note at the beginning, maybe list who you wish to receive it after you've departed the earth plane. It could be, one of your children. Like I said, it could be your significant other if they outlive you and they are also a practicing witch. It could be your best friend. It could be, a fellow member of your coven. It could be your coven as a group, but designate that and add it to like the first page. Just stick it into the cover of your grimoire and say, this is where I wish this book to go once I am no longer here. Book of Shadows, like I said, it's personal, and you'll have to decide also what kind of instructions you want to leave with that. So that's the difference between a grimoire and a Book of Shadows. I don't post very often, but when I do, I try to always make my videos to be informative, useful, and hopefully somewhat entertaining. And I also ask that you subscribe to my channel, and I note below in my description my sister channels. I have another one that you all would probably be very interested in. It's called True Tales of the Paranormal. And on that channel, I share my own personal experiences with the paranormal and experiences that my family have had. So that's one you'll definitely want to check out. That's linked below. And then for those of you who are artsy witches and you're into journaling and watercolor and different kinds of art, you might be interested in my other sister channel, The Positive Vibes Artist. That's also linked below. And I'm also on Instagram if you'd like to follow me over there, and also Facebook. All my socials are down below. So thanks so much for watching. This is Neferkefri of Magical Musings. I'm wishing you a blessed day ahead.